Trust the Process Live, brought to you exclusively here on My New Philly. On my right, that's Max Coolish. On my left, James Jackson. I am your host, Sean Northgrave, reminding you all out there to like and share this show this evening. Right now. Go ahead and drop us some comments. I'm sure there's some things that we'll get to that you're going to have some opinions on. We got to get into the main event tonight, gentlemen. And shaken, not stirred, is the new hero of Philadelphia. Mr. Shake Milton had a career high yesterday, 39 points. He was on 14 of 20 shooting, 7 of 9 from 3. Guys, it brings us the question in literally probably the most depressing sports time of anything I've ever seen. Is Shake Milton the most valuable, healthy Sixer? We're not counting Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, or the newly concussed Jay Richardson.
Max, I know you've been known to say some blasphemous things about the Sixers.
Some blasphemous, right?
Please tell me you're not about to tell me that Shake Milton is the most valuable.
No, of course he's not.
I'll tell you about it.
Remember when after Furkan Korkmaz had that game against Portland, you guys were up here saying, oh, it's one game, he'll never do this again? Well, this is my turn to flip this around on you because Shake Milton has been a blip on the radar for this whole season, and the fact that you guys are making me answer this question, that is this guy having a career game going to save the Sixers season? The answer is the same as it was in November.
That's not the question, though. Is he the most valuable, healthy Sixer?
First of all,
is he the most valuable Sixer on the roster?
First of all, pause it, rewind it back, flip the script.
What is wrong about what I said? Anything?
You did try to tell me that Furkan Korkmaz was going to be one of the most important Sixers going
forward. He has been, and B, when I said that and tried to argue that, you two laughed at me and said I was wrong.
I'm going to laugh at you again if you try to say it.
He has been, what do you define as one of the most important pieces? Because he has been one of their most highest minutes, shot attempts. When Simmons or Embiid isn't playing, when one of the main offensive facilitators aren't down, his shots go way up. Whether you want to believe it, agree with me or not, there's no doubting that his role is A, increased throughout the season,
his role has
and B, increases even more when one of the main offensive guys can't play. With that being said, with this Shake Milton thing, I'm not sure how this is really any different. Yeah, he had an amazing career game, and I hope that he in turn earns more minutes because he deserves it. But saying that, is this guy who absolutely was unconscious in the first half against the Clippers, does he suddenly become the most valuable player to the team with Embiid and Simmons out? No, he doesn't. And to answer the question, it's still the guy that's getting paid more than Al Horford, and it's Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is the X factor. He has been all year. When he puts up 20-plus points, plays solid enough defense, doesn't miss all 7 of his 8 3-point attempts, and generally looks like a guy who's capable of being a solid number 2 option, the Sixers have played pretty well. When he doesn't, they look like how they did against Cleveland when that whole team disappeared except Shake Milton. So I'm not going to say off a game and a half this guy is all of a sudden the savior because that's not fair to him and that's not fair to people who watch this team all year and expect this to be a better sum product than where it is currently.
I agree with about like 85% of what you said. I still don't think you're remembering the freaking Korkmaz.
I 100% remember it right.
I don't think you're remembering that interaction great, but that's not the question.
Were you guys the ones up here caping for him and saying he's going to be a big piece moving forward?
No, I was saying to lower your expectations of what Furkan Korkmaz.
And that's what I'm trying to do now as someone who is in that spot. I'm trying to bestow my wisdom to you guys.
I'm glad you learned your lesson and now you're applying it forward. That makes me feel a lot better sitting up here on the table with you. What I will say is who I think the most important and most valuable, healthy Sixer is, doesn't play on the basketball court. He actually sits on the sidelines. With you out, your 2 best players. It's more important for Brett Brown to look at the roster of what he has now and figure out how can I put these puzzle pieces together that equals wins. Whether that's putting Shake Milton in the starting lineup and mixing things around, whether it's giving Tobias Harris and Al Horford new roles now as they step up without Simmons and Embiid to make sure he maximizes their production, whether it's going deeper into his bench and saying, I need people like Mike Scott, like Al Neto, like people at the end of my bench, I need you to step up, but I need you to step up and it's my job to put you in roles and situations where you can step in, where you can be most valuable. So I think if the pressure wasn't on Brett Brown before, it's so much on him now because he's got to put his players and put his organization in the right paths and the right places to succeed. And I think a lot's going to be on him.
Yeah. And I actually do think he might be the most valuable person on the Sixers team. Just hear me out on this. What has the Sixers needed desperately for the last 2 seasons that they haven't had?
A pick and roll point guard.
Bing, bing, bing.
I would say a bucket, but
a ball handling point guard.
A bucket, a pick and roll handling point guard, and a person that can
Look,
guard
all
the
I'm saying
other
is he's shown that he can do it, but it's unfair to the kids to expect this to be the saving grace for the season. That's all.
You can say that. Yeah. They need someone to play this role for them. If that is Shake Milton, that makes Shake Milton the most valuable person on this team.
His Instagram handle, Sniper Shake. They should have known he could have shot.
And look, I think there's
Kevin Durant's name.
I think there's some truth to what you're saying, because if Shake can check off those 3 boxes, at least minimally, at least in some way throughout the game, check off those 3 boxes of being a good pick and roll point guard, being someone who can handle the ball and control the perimeter in the half court, and someone who can guard the other team's guards. I think that's a very important thing that you brought up. I think that allows them to have that, and allows them to move Ben Simmons into a more maximized, productive role in the half court, which I think is taking him off primary ball handling duties in the half court.
I'll say this. I'll happily eat my words, and Shake Milton will absolutely be the most valuable Sixer for the rest of the season, Simmons and Embiid included, if he becomes the full-time or at least majority-time ball handler with Simmons healthy. If that was to happen, which I don't think it will, then he is without question the most important piece on this team.
We got to move on, guys. So this has been just a very odd second half of the season post-All-Star break for this Sixers team, to say the least. And we got a question here in front of us. We need to dive into it, because I think our guy Leonard Eisen last week at Devil's Alley opened up a really good point. Who made this team soft? And there's a lot of different angles you could take here. It doesn't need to be a player, doesn't need to be a coach. It could be anybody in the organization. Who do you think?
I mean, it's not a person. It's the expectations. When this city traditionally does not handle expectations well for any team, it seems, and this can happen to a lot of teams. Look at the Cleveland Browns this past year. The hype train got on them full steam ahead, just like it did with the Sixers.
Yikes.
And this isn't the best comparison to make, because the Sixers aren't going to finish, comparatively with like a 450 winning percentage like the Browns did, or however that math checks out.
With playoffs, yeah.
Exactly. So it's not going to work out in the exact same way. But to me, you can see those games where they just don't have it in them. Like the Cleveland game, Embiid goes down halfway through the first quarter, 3/4 of the way through the first quarter. Nobody knows what to do. Everybody looks so dejected, like, oh my God, what are we going to do? What you should do is play out the rest of the quarter. Fine, you need to clear out the cobwebs, readjust. That's fine. You have 3 quarters to beat one of the worst 5 teams in the league. That still needs to happen. You still need to score more than 92 points on the road. That was a game filled with a lot of bad individual performances, and I think that seems to be the norm when the Sixers kind of get punched in the mouth, figuratively speaking. The games that they lose Ben in the game, the games that they lose Joel in the game. Very willing to bet without having that factual evidence in front of me. Go back and look at those games for the last couple of years. They deflate instantly. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to respond to that. I guess part of that is on the coach, but what I saw against the Cavaliers last week, that is not a game that coaching wins or loses. That team was ice cold. They might as well have been shooting with blindfolds on. They look so bad, all right? Like, that is not a game you can put on the coach. But I think the managing of expectations absolutely is. So I think there's the fine line, but the organization as a whole has to realize just because you're projected to be one of the best 2 teams and someone who can stop the Bucks doesn't mean that actually happens.
So who
overnight.
do you put the blame on for the expectations? Do you put it on the city? Do you put it on the fans? Is who made this team soft? Is it the fans?
It's a combination of everything. We as fans hype them up.
The media.
Oh, media, obviously.
How does expectations make a team soft? To me, expectations make a team.
Makes you fool yourself. It makes you think that when you do get punched in the mouth, that because you are the Sixers and you're the preseason favorite to win the East and maybe beat the Lakers or the Clippers in the finals, you think those things are supposed to just work themselves out, but when you're a team that doesn't have the championship pedigree like the Sixers they don't have anything more than second-round losses. That stuff doesn't work itself out. Look at the great teams. The Warriors figure that stuff out. LeBron figures that stuff out because they have titles. They have what it takes. Michael and Kobe figure that out because they won't lose. The Sixers don't have that yet.
So isn't this more arrogance?
I think that is possibly a good way to put it.
Isn't this like a championship, like a team that carries itself like champions that have never actually won anything?
I think that's a good way to put it. I'm saying that the expectations got to their head, and that's a combination of everything. Players, ownership, fans, media, everything. You want to have that right mindset that, hey, we can do this, but at some point, it seems like they kind of got off the ground.
And I'm going to piggyback off of that because I think you make a lot of great points with the expectations. And I think it falls under organization from top down, ownership. When you have expectations put on a young team like that, a team who hasn't won yet but is expected now that this is our year to do it, I think it's incumbent upon organization, especially organization filled with former players. As Elton Brand, as the GM of the team, when you realize that this expectation is about your team, about your young team, I think it's very important to tell your young team expectations don't win championships. Hard work does. You can be expected to be the best team in the Eastern Conference, and I guarantee you not one of these teams will give you that just because you're expected to do that. And I think it falls and it manifests itself in many different ways. Look at how Alec Burks and Glenn Robinson came into the organization, and immediately after the first week, Glenn Robinson expressed frustration because he's like, I don't know what my role is.
Yeah.
Nothing was
starting one game, 12 minutes the next. It is frustrating. I can imagine.
Nothing was defined to me. Nothing was made clear that
he
this.
opened 3.
Yeah, this
Glenn
is
Robinson the third.
But this is. I need more than that. Like, like if you're going to integrate me into the team, integrate me into the team.
He missed his first 7 threes.
Well, don't just
I agree with both of you.
don't just put him out there, kick him on the
You
floor,
can't
and
just
say,
give up on someone.
and
You
say,
can't just stick him in the corner either.
Yeah,
That's not really fair to get him involved.
I've seen
Joel.
I've seen Joel Embiid miss 9 threes in a game before. Does that mean he shouldn't be part of the rotation?
Here's the thing, because Philadelphia, he's not JJ Redick. Philadelphia teams
Glenn Robinson the third.
have fallen under. Hold on. Philadelphia teams have fallen short of expectations before, but we haven't called them soft. Look at the Philadelphia Phillies last year. I don't think anyone was calling them soft. They were disappointing. Yes, they didn't win as many games as they should have. Yes, you might have been the only person I've ever heard who called that Phillies team soft.
Soft and disappointing
are two totally different things. I saw a team that performed under expectations, but I never saw a team that laid down. I never saw a team that didn't try, that didn't care, that didn't try to battle. I'm seeing a Sixers team that doesn't try to battle, that doesn't try to will itself. You look at Ben Simmons, there is clearly one thing that everyone is asking you to do that people can clearly see will upgrade you, will upgrade the team, will upgrade the organization. And you look unwilling to try to do that in a game situation.
Doesn't look unwilling. He has been unwilling.
He's unwilling to do that in a game situation. To me, that falls under soft. You don't want to try to will yourself to get better. You don't want to take the lumps that it takes to get yourself better, to improve on one skill. When you look at Giannis didn't have a jump shot until this year. Kind of still doesn't. And at first, when he tried to take it, it looked ugly. It looked bad. He airballed a lot. He missed a lot. But now, guess what? Giannis takes more than 3 threes a game and makes over 1 of them.
Like, shoots with confidence. It's a really good point on your point.
With confidence. You know what I mean? It happens. It's going to look ugly first, but that's what it takes to get better. That's not what I'm seeing with the Sixers.
You spoke the man's name, so we should move on to it now. It sparked quite a bit of controversy before we came on air here. Simmons has this back injury. A little bit scary. A lot of stuff going on with it. I don't feel very confident about it. Should the Sixers shut Simmons down for the season with this injury? What do you guys think?
No,
I see no benefit if he's healthy with keeping him out. And I know you're ready. I know you're ready to tee off.
You got your medical stipulations lined up.
Let me just ask you this question. If you are the Philadelphia 76ers and you have your full roster completely healthy, not subjectively healthy, but healthy.
Which is a key point.
It's a very key point. But healthy to the point where they don't need to be tended to after every game or after every possession. You have your full deck ready to go. Why do you purposely take out your queen, take out your king, take out one of your best cards just because?
Look, now I think the question should be for the regular season. I think that is, and if you want to give him a couple games at the end to get back into the rhythm of it all,
that's
do what you got to do.
shutting down means.
But it can be.
Yeah, shutting down.
You can shut him down for a month. They're talking about let's reevaluate him in a week with a back injury that every time he's going to come off the floor, they're going to have to work on him for. That doesn't sound healthy.
That's not healthy. In that case, you should not be cleared. Like, if you can't do more than one up and back down the score, I don't care what team you are. Even his medical staff is incompetent.
That
as
is
the Sixers.
Their definition of healthy right now, though. They're considering
that is nobody's definition of healthy.
They're considering sending him on the court like this and playing like this, and then coming off the court and getting attention to his back. He's a young guy. Then he is the queen of this team. Why are you going to put the future of this team at risk to try to win a championship this year that doesn't look like it's happening?
But then look at the argument we're having. The argument isn't should they shut down Ben Simmons. The argument is should the Sixers medical staff reevaluate what they deem as healthy.
No.
That's the argument we should be having.
This is the argument. Should the Sixers sell the team? Josh Harris, you should sell the team. That's what should be happening.
Because if your medical staff is considering sending one of your best players out there when he's not healthy, when you're not the #1 seed in the league, when you're not going to be vying for home court, when you're just going to be going up against road going against road challenges for most of the playoffs. If you're considering sending your best player out there unhealthy, then that's a problem. But I've also can make the argument that if you're truly one of my best players, if you're truly one of the faces of my franchise, and you're willing to go out and battle at 75 or 80%, then I will put that support behind you. We've seen players do it. Look, at the end.
Had a back injury.
At the end of a long season, I have not had a back injury. I'm very blessed with that. But at the end of a long season, for most sports, many teams will tell you that nobody is fully healthy. Yeah. Nobody is 100% healthy. There are nagging and lingering little injuries that majority of teams have to deal with. And if we're going to shut players down because there's a little nagging injury to them, then many teams will be playing out without many players on their roster. But at the end of the season, it comes time to battle in the playoffs. If I truly am confident that my team can battle for a championship, I'm putting all cards on the table. Now, if I'm not confident my team can't battle for a championship with those players out there, then fine, shut him down. But you have to realize that if you do shut him down, that's the message you're sending to the team, to the city, to the fans, to the rest of the NBA, that we're not confident that with this team we can win a championship, so we'll shut him down.
Okay, so here's the only point I want to make, Max. You could jump in there after this. If you guys, Max's team, was like currently the 4 seed, and they were 2.5 back of the 2, and they could avoid Milwaukee, and they could have a second-round home game, great. The chances of them climbing to 3 and avoiding Milwaukee are very slim right now.
Slim to none.
The chances of them falling backwards into 7 or 8 and having to play Toronto or Milwaukee are very slim right now. They're in a no man's land. To me, there's not a whole lot of reason to desire to win the next games in these next month and a half. Now, gaining momentum, getting your team together, doing stuff like that, all great. But there's not actually a lot of impact in terms of the standings or how they will be affected in the playoffs by this next month and a half of basketball.
The impact is in here. That's where the impact is.
The impact's going to be back here when he's laying on the sideline and he can't walk around.
It's as simple as this. If there is significant risk of long-term injury, Ben Simmons should not be playing. I don't care if that means regular or postseason. If he is cleared for normal basketball activities, full contact, 5-on-5 and the like, then he should be playing regardless of what can happen with standings. I don't give a damn. If you are healthy, if you are serious about competing for a title, you play. It is that simple.
And I agree with that. 100% healthy, 100% cleared, great. But if they're going to be doing this crap where you're pulling him off and working on his back, that's not 100%
then we'll have
healthy.
the conversation about
agree.
What is the Sixers ownership doing with the medical staff and on that front?
Here's my last question.
We'll have that
Here's
talk.
my last question to you, Sean. Why hasn't this conversation happened with Embiid the past couple of years? Embiid has had
there's different injuries.
but has had nagging knee injuries, correct? Has had nagging back injuries. We've seen Embiid come off the sideline and get his entire kneecap taped with 5 packs of ice. Is that not getting tended to every single time?
Because he already has a chronic injury.
Yeah.
So then what? But
it's arthritis. You can't heal arthritis. Like, you're trying to prevent another chronic injury.
And that's what I'm saying. If there's no risk of long-term injury, then he should be playing. But if it's like, hey, if Ben Simmons plays a serious game of basketball anytime in the next 6 months, this back could be a thing that just pops up on him every 2 or 3 games, and you could be looking at like a Michael Porter Jr. situation where he's known for having a terrible back. Then no, it's absolutely not worth it regardless of circumstance.
Thank you all for at least coming to see my side of the argument. We got to move on.
I don't agree with
Yeah,
that, but I see
exactly.
it.
We got to move on to halftime now. We're giving the people of Philadelphia a little bonus coverage for halftime this week.
Okay.
We're switching over from the Sixers. We're going to talk about the Eagles
I
a
got my
little
3D
bit.
glasses. I can't even read this.
The Eagles combine
yours doesn't look like
update. Is it wide receiver or bust for this team in the first round? Do you think that they could go anywhere else except wide receiver?
What's the biggest need on your team right now?
Wide receiver.
Okay, so go after it in the first round. Don't overthink this, man. If you have the opportunity to get one of the elite receivers in the first round, don't blow it. Don't overthink it. Don't outdo yourself. Go and get what you really need first.
I think I might have said this almost verbatim to you guys on or off camera, but it's as simple as this. If Judy or Lamb fall past 12 or 13, you do your due diligence. You look heavily into looking up to make the move for one of those 2 guys. They are franchise changers. They are not game changers. Those guys are franchise changers. If not, you make sure that you can get Henry Ruggs, because as far as I'm concerned, the other 2 are not. The one guy who is the hard last name to pronounce with the S, he got hurt. Never like the guys who get hurt a month before the combine unless they're dropping far.
No T. Higgins? You don't like T. Higgins?
Higgins I'd rather take Ruggs without question.
Right.
I like Higgins, but I'll take my chances with Ruggs, who fits the description of the actual type of receiver that we need. And it's not always often you see the guys with that high-end speed actually be valued at such a high prospect in terms of the draft board. I know you guys might think of John Ross a couple years ago, but John Ross was always known as more of like a utility guy at Washington. He was a highlight reel guy. He made a lot of his money on kick and punt returns, not by being a wide receiver, right? People got enamored with the speed, and that really carried them away. But I think Ruggs is a little bit different of a story where he has that top end speed, but he's shown that he can be a real receiver as well.
So there's no concern on either of your part with the Nelson Aguilar and the J.J. Arcega-White side of this all, where it's like we've missed big. The Eagles have missed big on wide receivers in the most recent
past. There always is gonna be. But like you can't let that stop you from making what should be the best choice for your franchise. And look, I'll say this, like, yeah, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside did not have like the did not have a great rookie year.
Max, stop sugarcoating it.
It was bad.
It was bad.
Better than other people's rookie year. Some people don't even touch the field their rookie year.
What? Okay.
Am I wrong?
Keep going.
Look, I'm just saying.
Wherever you're going, keep going.
But are you guys really going to start writing people in the NFL off after 1 year? How many people could we seemingly write off after 1 year in the NFL, and they come back and turn it on? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but I'm saying you should never. The NFL is the one sport where you should never write someone off after 1 year.
Okay.
Never.
Okay. I'm just saying there should be at least a little cause for concern. I don't think they're going to go this way. I just wanted to shout him out. Mekhi Becton. He's 6'7", he's 364 pounds, and he moves.
How could you miss him?
That guy is.
He's a big boy.
Look, if you were going to go somewhere, you might consider that the linebacker out of Clemson also who ran, a sub-4?
4.39, yeah.
Yeah.
At 250 pounds?
And he fits the need. I kind of like that a little bit better.
He's going to go top 7. There's no chance the Eagles
And my point on that is, does it, like, because of the recent struggles in the draft of wide receiver, does it make more sense to go free agent and then kind of fill like another position of need like linebacker with this kid from Clemson? I think that it's at least something to consider.
I just feel like this is supposed to be like a historically deep wide receiver draft. I don't want to miss out.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to miss out on when wide receiver is your biggest need.
Plus, there's so many needs that can be filled in free agency. Free agency just got ramped up crazy with the amount of people that are being moved. So I think you can fill needs in free agency elsewhere.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more in tap outs.
Also, one other quick thing: drafting a young stud wide receiver gives you a nice young core, three-headed core on offense. You have Sanders, Wentz, and hypothetical 23 or under.
I put Wentz in that, or I put Ertz in that core as well.
And Ertz as well, yeah.
Yep,
Ertz is a little bit older, but like his first couple years, he was definitely second fiddle guy.
Yeah, it's fine. It's the same sort of thing. We got to move on to the second half of the show now, guys. We're going to truth or no. It's where we ask you questions and we wonder whether it's true or not.
Or not.
So we have this has got to be a record. We have not one, we have two hockey questions in the show today. Isn't that amazing? Flyers Nation, stand up. I mean, we're here with you.
You have an orange banner?
We really should have put up the orange today.
We missed that one.
I've been working on this pronunciation all day, and I'm still going to screw it up. Alain Vigneault. Did I get it? Is that close? Alain Vigneault?
Alain Vigneault.
All right, whatever.
Vigneault.
Should my man AV be the NHL Coach of the Year?
Yeah, he should. And as far as I'm concerned, the only other two guys, after I actually did my own manual research on this, I looked for like who is the NHL Coach of the Year frontrunners. I was trying to do some research. Couldn't find anything that was more recent than a couple months ago, so I actually did my own research.
Okay, so we're not the only people who don't adequately cover the NHL.
I was on Fanside. You guys know Fanside? Their NHL playoff preview is for the 2018 playoffs, so that really gives you guys a good insight into how often people keep up with their hockey content. So I'll say this: in my research, the only two other guys I could find, Mike Sullivan, who is the coach of the Pittsburgh P-Words. He has actually missed over 200 player games worth of talent this year. And almost 100 of those games between Malkin and Sidney Crosby. The Penguins are right behind the Flyers in terms of the standing. I don't like throwing in there because they're like one of those powerhouse franchises where it doesn't seem like it matters who coaches are placed for them. They just do well because they're a well-structured organization. And then the other guy is former Flyers coach Craig Berube, current Stanley Cup champion St. Louis Blues. They are,
they're doing well.
They're doing well.
Yeah, they're top of the West right now.
They're on top of the West, and as far as I'm concerned, I don't really see anything else. Like at this point, it feels like it would kind of almost take like a major slip by the Flyers to blow that for AV. So I'm going to take my chances by saying this.
I'll go truth. I'll go truth because also what he's been able to do with kind of the ancillary stuff that's happening with the Flyers. Oscar Lindbaum. There you go. See. I know. Oscar Lindbaum having his tragic incident happen and getting his guys to really rally. I know Carter Hart's been in and out of the lineup and they've been able to also sustain wins through him being out. So the fact that he's been able to navigate the Flyers and continue to win and move up in the standings with all this kind of stuff happening around a young team as well. I think you don't have to be first in a division to win Coach of the Year. I think you have to really exceed expectation. I think that's what.
Yeah, I think hockey is definitely the penultimate sport where it's like actually not like automatic best team in the league, Coach of the Year, MVP, Offensive Player of the Year.
Right.
Yeah. I think hockey is one of those sports where it's like, hey, you might have finished sixth, but you were the best Coach of the Year, so you deserve it.
Yeah.
All right, we got to move on to the second Flyers question of the afternoon tonight, guys. So before the show started, EP James Hyden talked about that the Flyers have the highest percent chance to win the Stanley Cup right now at a whopping 13%.
By a certain metric, yes, I saw it.
So that's exciting stuff. But before they get there, they have to at least go through the Metropolitan Division. And the question, truth or not, the Flyers will take over first place in the Metropolitan Division over the Caps with 3 points behind.
I'll say truth because so much about sports is not only getting hot, but getting hot at the right time. And the Flyers coming down the home stretch are playing some of the best hockey in the NHL
Guess who
right
the next
now.
game is?
Who?
Washington Capitals.
There you go. There you go.
In Washington.
There you go. That's a statement game, right? Getting hot at the right time is one of the most important things you can do in sports. Flyers are playing some of the best hockey in the NHL when it matters the most. They continue this momentum and ride it out. I see them getting to the top of the Metropolitan Division.
So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree because, when we played the Capitals 2 weeks ago, we absolutely demolished them 7-2. And that is not a team that takes defeats like that very lightly, especially against a team you see 4 times a year plus potential playoff games. So, unfortunately, I'm going to have to say they'll lose one way or another in Washington Wednesday night. But I will say that I think that they are playing at such a high enough level that I think they can scrape a point out of the game, at least bring it to overtime. If they can't win the game at all, that's fine. But I'll say this, because they are 3 points back of Washington, even a win straight up doesn't put them in first place. And then the next night they're going to play in Carolina against a team who is also fighting for one of those lower playoff seeds. So almost I'm at the point where I would almost rather them just lose to Washington and get the game on Carolina. Like, I would rather take a guaranteed 2 out of 4 points than potentially only get 1 or 0 because you busted your ass in Washington to get a statement win and then you're coming out dead-legged against Carolina the
What
next
is
night.
with this mindset of going for the low-hanging fruit? Like, I don't understand. Well, that has been the theme of this entire episode.
Look,
Battle, Max. Go for the higher achievement.
I'm saying realistically, when you're playing this well and you hit a back-to-back, basketball, hockey, it doesn't matter what sport. You're playing well, you're always due to lose a game at some point. I love these Flyers, but I somehow doubt they're not going to lose a game for the rest of the year in the playoffs.
Philly sports has been rough on you the past couple
It has.
years.
Hey, it's part of being real. It's part of being a realist. Look, I'm saying that if they're going to lose one of these 2 games, I would prefer it to be the Washington Capitals game so they can come out and play hard against a team that's easier to beat.
And then getting back to your point, you're saying that they're peaking at the right time. This might still be a little early. Like they really want to be peaking a month from now.
They're not going to go, like I said, they're not going to go undefeated the rest of the season. I think the foundation that's really come into place after the new year has been enough where I've seen consistency over 2 months, and I don't need it to happen 5-game winning streaks every single time. I'm cool if they lose a game or 2 because you can't not lose games. It's just impossible in any sport. You have to lose games at some point, and I think they're at the point where dropping a game or 2, as long as they're not to the bottom feeder teams that you should be beating, like losing to the Capitals in Washington, that's not a loss to be embarrassed about, right? Like losing to the Penguins in Pittsburgh, that might be a huge game at the end of the month, but ultimately, regardless of the standings at the time, that's not a game to be embarrassed about losing, right? So I think as long as they are consistent in picking up the games that they should, they'll win some of the games that maybe are 50-50. And at that point, you feel great going into the playoffs as one of the hottest teams in the league regardless.
All right, we got to move on, guys. Going to another team in Philadelphia that lost a lot of games last year is the Philadelphia Phillies. We're hitting all Big Four today. This is a nice little...
March 2nd. The best month for baseball, hockey, football, and basketball.
We're rounding the bases. And the big question, guys, Bryce Harper was signed February 28th, 2019. We just passed the 1-year anniversary. It was a pretty disappointing first season in Philadelphia for the man. But truth or not, Bryce Harper will return to MVP form this season.
It's almost eerie how, I don't want to say similar, the expectations of... I shouldn't say the expectations, but maybe the makeup of the Phillies and the Flyers were going into their respective seasons. The Flyers this past one and the Phillies season that's coming up now. Bringing in a old school hard-nosed coach, replacing the young upstart guy that you thought was going to be the guy that was the big splash hire, and bring someone who's a little bit more stable, a little bit more of a rock, a little bit more concrete. That gives you that solidarity in the clubhouse, both as a manager and as a person. And I think that the Phillies are set up wonderfully to bounce back this year. They're trying to address their weak points. Manager was a weak point, and they addressed it. I think that even at times, no matter how frustrated we got with Bryce last year, he still had a pretty good year in terms of raw numbers. They weren't always like, the games where he needed to come up big, he was. But if you say, hey, Bryce Harper did this last year, you look at it and be like, that's a pretty good year.
That's a pretty good year.
Not his best year.
Thank you.
But if the Phillies, had 15 more wins last year, he would have been an MVP candidate. Yeah. Would he have won it? Still probably not, because his numbers weren't mind-blowing, but he still would have been in the discussion. And I think that's all it takes is them to crack 90 wins. And if everything goes to the course, part of the course of last year, he should be in the mix.
In a down year, the man was, by the numbers, the clutchest player in baseball by at least 3 wins that he added to his team.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce had a good year. Like, I wasn't disappointed really with the year individually that Bryce Harper had. It could have been a little bit better, but I didn't look at Bryce Harper's year and say, wow, he didn't do it for us. Last year we had 13 years. We now still have 12 years of Bryce Harper. With that comes a transition year, comes gray area, comes a year.
Look, LeBron going to the Lakers last year.
You got to figure stuff out. Like, you got to be able to adjust to the new city you're in, the new fan base. I don't know if LeBron was the right analogy.
Yeah, really.
But
LeBron missed the playoffs last year too. I'm not
sure. Team sucked. But we're getting off topic. Zach. Are you going to sit here and tell me the Lakers didn't suck last year?
You're going to sit here and tell me the Phillies didn't suck last year. That's what I'm saying.
You're soft.
Listen, I think with Bryce's 12 years comes transition years, comes a year where he gets to figure out the new city he's in, the new teammates he has, the new scheme he has to deal with, the new everything. Everything is new to Bryce Harper. So now that he has that under his belt, he's familiar with everything, familiar with the park that he gets to hit in, familiar with the pitchers that he's going to face more times a year in the NL East, I think comes with added production this year.
My only point was that even LeBron needs a transition year. That's all.
I agree with that.
I don't know.
The elaboration I didn't agree with. How you proved it.
I don't think I could actually disagree with a lot that went on there without going on for a while longer. So we're just going to move on. So we're going to go from Bryce to Price. It is Brian Price that I'm talking about. Brian Price, the new pitching coach, and Joe Dillon, the new hitting coach on the Philadelphia Phillies, will be better hires than Mr. Joe Girardi.
I mean, this is always going to be unequivocally false because it doesn't matter what they do because any success will go to the team, which will go to Girardi's credit. So unless it comes out that Joe Girardi is fighting players in the dugout and the Phillies are winning every game 15-0 because of their pitching and their hitting, there's no feasible way that these two will ever get more.
That's media narrative stuff, though. We're talking about the actual impact on the team. Do you think that these guys will have more of an impact on the day-to-day baseball?
No, because I don't think our pitching or our hitting was the biggest issue last year. I think it was our management.
All right.
Fair point. Fair point.
Well said. Really concise.
Concise. Very good point.
I'm not usually concise.
Right. I do think you take a lesson in that. I do think that Brian Price, just to play devil's advocate a little bit, will end up being a more important hire than Joe Girardi. If you look at where the pitching was last year, we had our top 2 or 3 pitchers, really none of our starting pitchers performed to expectation last year. You can put a little bit of that on Gabe Kapler, but you got to put a lot of that on the pitching staff as a whole. And I think now you bring in somebody who's, like you said, more stable, more seasoned, and can really put Aaron Nola back to ace formation. You put Zach Wheeler into that good starting or that good second man in the rotation. You have Jake Arrieta come back to be a solid third piece. I think he's going to end up being a very important piece when it's all said and done. And you look at the success that the starting pitching rotation had, you're going to look back at Brian Price, and you're going to say that's a big reason why.
Well, that's all we have for the show this evening, gentlemen. We got to move on. 2 tap outs now to bring us home. Who wants to start?
You got one?
Go ahead. You can start.
I don't really have much this week. I'll keep it very simple. April is like the best month for sports ever. So at this point, I'm just kind of waiting for it because we're in that weird spot where there's no NHL playoffs. These are the least meaningful of the meaningful NBA games, meaningful regular season NBA games still left. Golf tour is starting to get kicked off. It's about to be the end of the conference play season, and we get into conference tournaments, and all that stuff really just starts to snowball in the next couple of weeks. So that's really all I'm looking forward to. I really got nothing else because I have been scraping through days by watching like second division German soccer or like darts. Don't hate on the XFL. XFL had another good slate of games this weekend.
That's high quality
the
entertainment.
The XFL had another good slate of games this weekend, unsurprisingly, because it's fun to watch. So I'll say this. These are kind of the dog days of the sports year. Hell, we don't even have baseball back yet. So I'll say hibernation's almost over to my fellow junkies out there. April is our time to shine. Be ready.
It's a lot of March sadness for Max Coolidge.
Yeah, I'm gonna go and bring it to March Madness. I love the month of March.
It's not that. I mean,
My
March
birthday's
Madness
in March.
doesn't.
The start
Nice.
of conference tournaments is to me the start of March Madness. That's where the craziness.
Yeah, that's fair. The
craziness
tournament
starts.
itself is April though.
Baseball does start in March. Opening day is going to be right. Opening days in March or opening days in April.
Yeah, it's March.
Opening day?
4th
Is it
or-
really?
4th or 28th.
Bingo.
Hold
Bingo.
crap,
So-
it's early.
Why'd they move it up?
Opening day. I remember
Good job,
last year was
baseball.
at the
You
end of
did
May.
it.
Earlier.
It's way too early.
Why?
It's freezing outside. JJ, it's your tap out.
Yeah.
50 degrees out.
It's
I
freezing
get
outside.
I get yelled at. I'm making this my tap out. I get yelled at for intervening in other people's tap outs, yet I never get to finish a tap out. So
Don't
March
say-
is better than April. The Phillies were not soft. The Lakers sucked last year, and Shake Milton is not the most valuable Sixer. And I'm done. Goodbye, Philly.
Are you walking off?
I'm walking off.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Let him go.
He's gone. I've been. I talk about my one team a lot. I don't talk about the other. I'm also a Jets fan. If that means anything to you guys. The biggest news in sports this week is not anything we talked about here. Tom Brady's probably leaving the Patriots. Everyone. It actually
You see him
looks like it's
FaceTime with
happening.
Mike Vrabel?
It
You
looks
see
like it's
FaceTime with
happening.
Mike Vrabel?
You know,
Uh-oh.
I've had Stockholm syndrome for the past like 10 years with the New England Patriots. I don't even hate them anymore. I have no hatred in my body. There's a long time where there was vitriol and bile that came up through me when I heard Tom Brady or Bill Belichick. Now I'm just cool.
This is
And
gonna
now
be
he's
so much
leaving,
funnier
and
when he
you know
comes
what?
back.
I'm pretty great
So
now.
much funnier.
I really didn't understand how much of a weight this played on my life. I can't imagine how it feels for everybody else.
Now you guys
So,
can lose the division to the Bills.
there you go. I'm much better losing the division.
I feel like everyone
I
is.
love the Bills. That has nothing to do with what we're talking about here. Thank you all for checking out another edition of Trust the Process Live. Screw Tom Brady, go somewhere else, finish your career in a hole. For Max Coolidge, James Jackson, I'm Sean Northgrave. Thanking you all for checking out my new Philly, where something's always new and everything's always Philly. Check you guys next Monday, same time, same
Peace
place.
out, everybody. March Madness picks are coming soon. Do I got another winner on deck? Probably not.
Did you win the bracket last year?
I don't think I did the bracket with
Who
you guys
won the
last
bracket
year.
last year?
I'm going to be going hard on brackets this year. I
Always go hard on brackets.
Basketball.